Kang Tae wiped the sweat from his forehead as he cleaned the waste disposal unit on the lower deck of Nexus 7 space station. He had been doing this job for 3 years now. It was not a good job, but it was the only job he could find. Back on Earth, he used to cook in his family's small restaurant. Those days felt like a dream now. Suddenly, red lights flashed everywhere. A loud alarm made him jump. "All workers must stay where they are," the computer voice announced. "An Imperial ship is coming. Do not move." Tae's heart beat fast. Imperial meant the dragon people were coming. The Draconians ruled most of the galaxy. They were huge and powerful, and they did not care about humans. Humans were the poor ones in space doing jobs nobody else wanted. "Kang Tae, come to Central Command now." Tae froze. The computer had never said his name before. This could not be good. He walked through the corridors with shaking legs. Giant draconian guards stood everywhere. They were 9 feet tall with black scales that shined like metal. Their yellow eyes watched him as he passed. Tae kept his head down and tried not to look scared. The doors opened. Tae saw something he never expected to see in his life. The room was full of draconian nobles wearing expensive armor. Floating banners showed the dragon symbol of their empire. And in the middle of everything sat Queen Vexera herself. She was terrifying. Her purple and blue scales seemed to glow. Her wings were so big they filled half the room. When she looked at Tae, he felt like she could see into his soul. "This is a waste cleaner," a red-scaled draconian general said with disgust. "Your Majesty, surely we can find someone better than this." The Queen's huge tail hit the floor with a bang. "General Crone, my doctors have failed. My scientists have failed. My best chefs have failed. My children are dying. We must try new things." A silver-scaled advisor stepped forward. "Kang Tae from Earth, you are not in trouble. But we need your help. The Queen's baby dragons will not eat anything. They are starving to death." Tae's mind was spinning. "I do not understand. I just clean toilets. I know nothing about dragon babies." "We know you cook," the Queen said. Her voice was so deep it made his bones vibrate. "We have cameras in all the rooms. We saw you making food in your quarters 3 weeks ago." Tae felt his face get hot. He had been using old food from restaurant trash bins. He had a small cooking plate he made from spare parts. It was against the rules, but he missed real food so much. "I was not stealing," Tae said quickly. "The food was garbage. I just wanted to eat something that tasted like home." "Be quiet when you speak to Her Majesty," General Crone shouted. But the Queen raised one giant claw. "Let him talk. Kang Tae, I do not care about small rule breaking. My children are dying. Will you try to feed them?" Tae thought about his sister G1 back on Earth. She was very sick. He sent all his money to pay for her medicine. If he died here, she would have no help. But he also remembered his grandmother who taught him to cook. She always said that food made with love was different from food made without care. "I will try," Tae said. "But I cannot promise anything. I have never fed dragon babies before." "They eat nothing," the Queen said sadly. "That is the problem. Follow me." The Queen took him to her spaceship. It was huge, bigger than anything Tae had ever seen. They walked through hallways full of guards who stared at him. A human in the royal nursery was something that had never happened before. The nursery was a giant warm room with sand on the floor. In the middle, 3 tiny dragons lay in a nest. They were small, only the size of big dogs. One was gold, one was red, and one was white. They barely moved, just breathing slowly. "They have not eaten for 6 days, a dragon doctor said. "We tried everything. They refuse all food. Today they stopped moving." The Queen went to the nest and made a sad sound. The gold baby dragon moved a little but did not open its eyes. Tae looked at the food they had been offering. Everything was measured perfectly, kept at exact temperatures, served in laboratory dishes. It looked like science, not food. "Can I use your kitchen?" he asked. General Crone laughed. "The royal kitchen? You have no respect, human." But the Queen nodded. "Use anything you need." 2 hours later, Tae came back with a bowl. Inside was simple bone broth. He had roasted bones until they smelled good, then cooked them with vegetables for a long time. It was his grandmother's recipe. He knelt by the nest and touched the broth to the gold baby's nose. Nothing happened. He tried the red one. Still nothing. But when he touched it to the white baby's nose, something amazing happened. The tiny dragon opened its bright blue eyes. Its tongue came out and tasted the broth. Then it made a happy sound. Suddenly all 3 baby dragons were awake and drinking the broth. They knocked over the bowl and licked it from everywhere, making little chirping noises. Everyone started talking at once. The doctors rushed forward. The nobles gasped. Queen Vexera lowered her huge head next to Tay. A tear as big as Tay's fist rolled down her face. "What did you do?" she whispered. Tay watched the babies playing together, already looking stronger. "I cooked with care. Sometimes that is what matters." The queen looked at him for a long time. "You will stay here. You will keep feeding them. Tell me what you want as payment." Tay thought of his dying sister. "Help my sister. Give her the best medicine. That is all I need." "Done," the queen said. "But understand this, Kong Tay. You belong to the royal family now until my children are grown. Your life is connected to theirs." Tay looked down at the white baby dragon curled against his leg, warm like a small heater. He touched its head gently. It made a purring sound. "I understand," he said. He did not really understand what was beginning. He did not know that one simple meal would change an entire empire. But right now, watching 3 hungry babies eat for the first time in days, Tay felt something he had not felt in years. He felt like he mattered. Tay woke up in a room that was bigger than his entire apartment back on Earth. Soft purple light came through the windows. He could see stars moving past the ship. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then he heard scratching at his door. 3 small dragons tumbled into the room when he opened it. The white one jumped on his bed. The gold one sniffed his feet. The red one made hungry chirping sounds. "Already? I fed you 3 hours ago," Tay said with a smile. A draconian servant appeared at the door. Her green scales looked nervous. "Sir, the hatchlings should not be here. They should stay in the nursery." "They can smell the food," Tay said. "Let me make them breakfast." In the royal kitchen, the head chef Vexcor watched Tay with angry eyes. He did not like a human using his kitchen. But the queen had given orders. Tay started cooking eggs. Not the synthetic ones from the food machines. Real eggs from some alien bird he could not pronounce. He added butter and fresh herbs he had found in the storage room. The smell filled the kitchen. The 3 baby dragons sat at his feet watching every move. The white one kept trying to climb his leg. "Why do they follow you everywhere?" Vexcor asked. "They never followed the other feeders." Tay thought about it while he cooked. "Maybe because I talk to them. Maybe because I give them food that smells good. I do not know." He did know, but it was hard to explain. Back on Earth, his grandmother had taught him that cooking was about more than just mixing ingredients. It was about paying attention. About caring if something tasted good or just okay. The baby dragons devoured the eggs. They made happy sounds and rubbed against Tay's legs. The white one fell asleep on his foot. "They have bonded with you," Vexcor said quietly. "This is not normal. Draconian hatchlings only bond with their mother." Later that day, a group of scientists came to study Tay while he cooked. They held scanners and took notes. One of them, a tall draconian with blue scales, seemed friendlier than the others. "Fascinating," she said. "Your food has the same nutrients as ours. But the molecular structure is different. You use heat in ways our food processors do not." "I just cook like my grandmother taught me," Tay said. He was making soup now. The baby dragons watched the pot like it was the most interesting thing in the universe. "But why does it work?" another scientist asked. "Draconian biology should reject Terran preparation methods." Tay stirred the soup slowly. "Maybe they do not care about biology. Maybe they just want food that someone cared about while making it." The scientists looked confused. One of them wrote something down. Queen Vexera visited that evening. She was so big she had to duck under the kitchen doorway. The baby dragons ran to her, chirping and showing her their bellies. She nuzzled each one gently. "They are already stronger," she said to Tay. "In one day, you have done what my physicians could not do in weeks." "They just needed real food," Tay said. He was tired. Cooking for baby dragons was harder than he thought. They ate constantly. "No," the queen said. "They needed care. In draconian culture, we treat hatchlings as future warriors from the moment they are born. We give them perfect nutrition and strict training. But we do not give them affection. That is seen as weakness." She looked at her children playing with a wooden spoon Tay had given them. "Perhaps we have been wrong." That night, Tay sat with the baby dragons in the nursery. They curled around him like cats. He had started naming them in his head. The white one was Frost because of her scales. The gold one was Ember because of her warm personality. The red one was Storm because he was always energetic. "You 3 are going to get me in trouble," he whispered. Frost opened one eye and made a small happy sound. Someone coughed at the doorway. General Crone stood there, his red scales looking almost black in the dim light. "The nobles are talking," he said. His voice was not friendly. "They say you are making the royal hatchlings weak. They say a human should not have this much influence over the future rulers." Tay felt cold fear in his stomach. I am just feeding them. You are doing more than that, Crone said. The hatchlings refuse to eat unless you prepare the food. They follow you like you are their parent. This is unacceptable. What do you want me to do? Let them starve? Crone's eyes narrowed. I want you to understand your place, human. You are a servant. Nothing more. Do not forget that. After he left, Tay sat in the darkness with the sleeping baby dragons. He thought about his sister G1. The queen had promised to help her, and he had received a message that morning. G1 was being moved to the best hospital in the galaxy. The treatment was already working. He could leave. He could demand to go home. But when he looked at Frost sleeping with her head on his lap, he knew he would not leave. Not yet. What have I gotten myself into? He whispered to the stars outside the window. Storm yawned in his sleep and accidentally breathed out a tiny flame. It was the first fire any of them had made. Tay smiled despite his worries. They were growing stronger every day. And somehow that made everything worth it. The next morning, Tay was making breakfast when alarms started blaring. The ship shook. Frost, Ember, and Storm ran under the table, frightened. What is happening? Tay asked a passing guard. Assassins, the guard said, running past. Someone is trying to kill the hatchlings. Tay's blood turned to ice. He looked at the 3 baby dragons hiding under the table, their eyes wide with fear. Everything was about to change. The assassin was a draconian noble with dark green scales. He broke into the nursery with a plasma weapon. But he did not expect what happened next. Storm saw the weapon pointed at Tay. The little red dragon, barely the size of a large dog, roared. It was a tiny sound, almost cute. But then fire exploded from his mouth. Real fire, hotter than anything a baby dragon should be able to make. The assassin's weapon melted in his hands. He screamed and ran. Royal guards caught him in the hallway. Tay stood frozen, his heart pounding. Frost and Ember huddled behind him, shaking. But Storm stood in front of them all, smoke still coming from his nostrils. The baby dragon looked back at Tay as if asking, Did I do good? You saved us, Tay whispered. He picked up Storm and held him close. The little dragon was hot to touch, but Tay did not care. Queen Vexera arrived minutes later. She looked at the scorch marks on the floor, then at her son in Tay's arms. He defended you, she said quietly. Hatchlings do not develop defensive fire for months. This should not be possible. A physician examined Storm. His development is accelerated. All 3 hatchlings are growing faster than normal. Stronger than normal. The queen looked at Tay for a long time. What are you doing to them? I feed them. I talk to them. I play with them, Tay said. That is all. No, the queen said. That is everything. That is what we have never done. Over the next weeks, more scientists came to study the hatchlings. They measured everything. They took notes constantly. But none of them could explain why the baby dragons were thriving so much. Tay knew why, but he could not put it into words these dragons would understand. Every meal he made with attention. When Frost did not like spicy food, he remembered and made hers mild. When Ember wanted crunchy things, he roasted vegetables until they were crispy. When Storm wanted everything hot, he served his food warm. It was not just feeding. It was listening, caring, paying attention to what each one needed. He also told them stories while they ate. Stories about Earth. About his grandmother. About the ocean and mountains and rain. The hatchlings loved the stories. They would stop eating just to listen, their eyes wide. Why do you waste time with tales? Vexcor asked one day. They need to eat, not hear nonsense. Stories make meals special, Tay said. My grandmother always said that eating alone is just survival. Eating together with stories is living. The head chef grunted but said nothing more. One afternoon, Tay found the queen watching him through the nursery window. He was teaching the hatchlings a simple earth song. They could not sing the words, but they hummed along in their own way. She entered quietly. For such a huge creature, she could move like a shadow. In our culture, hatchlings are trained from birth, she said. They learn to hunt, to fight, to rule. We believe showing too much affection makes them weak. Do you believe that? Tay asked. The queen was silent for a long time. Then she did something Tay never expected. She lay down on the floor next to her children. They immediately climbed on her, chirping and playing with her wings. I do not know what I believe anymore, she said softly. My parents raised me the traditional way. I was strong. I conquered enemies. I built an empire. But I was also alone. Frost curled up under the queen's chin. Vexera made a sound Tay had never heard before. It was almost like crying but gentler. They love you, Tay said. They just also need more than combat training. Is this what human parents do? The queen asked. Some do. My grandmother did. She said love and strength were not opposites. They were partners. But not everyone was happy about the changes. General Crone called a meeting of the Noble Council. Tay was not invited, but he heard about it from a friendly servant. The human is corrupting our future rulers, Crone had said. The hatchlings play instead of train. They expect comfort instead of discipline. This weakness will destroy our empire. Many nobles agreed. They began planning to remove Tay from the ship. Some whispered about removing him permanently. Duke Vorthak, a powerful noble with silver scales, became the leader of this group. He had 3 grown sons who wanted to be next in line for the throne. If the queen's hatchlings were seen as weak or unfit to rule, his family could take power. We must act during the proving ceremony, Vorthak said to his followers. When the hatchlings are tested before the empire. If they fail, the humans' methods will be exposed as foolish. The queen will have no choice but to return to traditional ways. The proving ceremony was in 2 weeks. All young dragons had to pass certain tests to be recognized as royal heirs. They had to show strength, intelligence, and fire control. Frost, Ember, and Storm were still very young for the ceremony. But the law said they must be tested at 3 months old. That deadline was approaching. Tay did not know about the plots against him. He only knew that the hatchlings seemed worried. They stayed closer to him than usual. They woke up from nightmares. What is wrong? He asked Frost one night. She was the smallest and most sensitive. She made soft distressed sounds and pressed against him. I wish I could understand you, Tay said, stroking her white scales. The next morning Queen Vexera summoned him. She looked tired, like she had not slept. The proving ceremony is coming, she said. My children must demonstrate their abilities before the Noble Council and representatives from all our worlds. If they fail, there will be consequences. What kind of consequences? They could be declared unfit to inherit. Another family could claim the throne. Civil war could begin. The queen's voice was heavy. And you would be blamed for their failure. Some nobles want you executed as a traitor who weakened the royal line. Tay felt like ice water had been poured down his back. But they are just babies. They are royal heirs. They do not get to be just babies. The queen looked at her claws. I'm sorry, Kangte. I have put you in terrible danger. Perhaps you should leave while you can. Tay thought about running. Going back to Earth to safety. But then Ember walked into the room, carrying his shoe in her mouth like a prize. She looked so proud of herself. I am not leaving them, he said. The queen's eyes glistened. Then we train. We have 2 weeks to prepare them for tests they are too young to pass. May your human gods help us. I do not believe in gods, Tay said. But I believe in these 3. They are stronger than anyone thinks. He hoped he was right. The day of the proving ceremony arrived too quickly. Tay stood backstage in the grand arena, watching thousands of Draconians fill the seats. Representatives from hundreds of worlds had come to watch. This was not just a test. This was a spectacle. Frost, Ember, and Storm huddled close to him. They were nervous. Tay could feel them shaking. You can do this, he whispered. I have seen you practice. You are ready. But he was not sure. They were so young. The other dragons being tested today were twice their age and size. Duke Vorthak appeared with a cold smile on his face. The human and his pets. How touching. I hope you have prepared them well. Failure today means death for traitors. They are not pets, Tay said quietly. They are the future of your empire. We shall see, Vorthak said and walked away. Queen Vexera came to them before the ceremony began. She touched each hatchling gently with her snout. Remember your training. Remember who you are. I am proud of you no matter what happens. Then she looked at Tay. Thank you for caring for them. Whatever happens today, you gave them something I could not. The ceremony began. One by one, young dragons performed for the crowd. They breathed huge columns of fire. They fought practice battles with perfect technique. They solved complex problems to show their intelligence. The crowd cheered for each success. Then it was time for the royal hatchlings. The queen's children will now prove themselves, the announcer said. First test, fire control. Storm went first. He was supposed to light 3 torches at different distances. The first 2 lit easily. But the third was far away. Storm took a deep breath and released fire. It reached the torch but also scorched the wall behind it. The crowd murmured. Not perfect but acceptable for one so young. Ember went next. She had to melt a metal bar to show fire intensity. She succeeded, but it took her longer than the older dragons. More murmuring from the crowd. Frost was last. She was supposed to breathe fire through a ring without touching the edges. She was the smallest and her fire was the weakest. Tay held his breath as she approached. Frost's fire was thin but controlled. It went through the ring perfectly. The crowd was surprised. Some even clapped. Second test, combat ability, the announcer called. Each hatchling had to spar with a trained guard. The guard would not hurt them, but they had to show they could defend themselves. Storm fought with pure enthusiasm. He was not skillful, but he was brave. He never backed down even when knocked over. Ember used her brain. She dodged and waited for openings. When the guard expected her to retreat, she attacked. The crowd appreciated her cleverness. Frost was different. She was too small to overpower anyone. Instead, she used speed. She was so fast the guard could barely track her. When the match ended, the guard was breathing hard. She fights like wind, someone in the crowd said with respect. Third test, intelligence, the announcer said. They had to solve a puzzle box that even some adult dragons struggled with. It required understanding spatial relationships and remembering sequences. The hatchlings had never seen this puzzle before. Tay watched nervously as they approached it together. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of competing, they worked together. Storm tried one approach while Ember tried another. When Frost saw a pattern, she chirped to tell the others. Within minutes they solved it. Working together was not traditional. Young dragons were supposed to compete, to prove individual worth. But the crowd seemed impressed anyway. Final test, the question, the announcer said. This was the test Tay had feared most. Each hatchling would be asked a question by Duke Vorthak himself. They had to answer with wisdom beyond their years. Vorthak stepped forward, his silver scales gleaming. He smiled like a predator. Storm, he said. What is the purpose of power? The little red dragon thought for a moment. Then he walked to Tay and sat at his feet. To protect, Storm said in halting words. It was the first time any of them had spoken in front of others. The crowd gasped. Hatchlings this young rarely spoke. Vorthak's smile faded. Ember, what is the mark of a true leader? Ember looked at her mother in the royal box. Caring for others before yourself. The crowd was completely silent now. Frost, Vorthak said, his voice hard. What makes someone worthy of respect? Frost walked to the edge of the platform where everyone could see her. Her voice was small but clear. Kindness and strength together. Like Tay taught us. The arena erupted. Some nobles shouted in anger. Others argued. The common draconians in the cheap seats cheered. Vorthak's face turned dark with rage. These are not draconian answers. These are human corruption. This proves the hatchlings have been poisoned by weak philosophy. Enough. Queen Vexra's voice thundered through the arena. She stood from her throne. You asked for wisdom and they gave it. You wanted to see their worth and they showed it. They are young, yet they speak truth that many adults have forgotten. They speak treason. Vorthak shouted. Power is not for protection. It is for domination. Leaders rule through fear, not care. This human has made them weak. General Crone stepped forward. For once he did not look angry. I have watched these hatchlings train. They are stronger than any I have seen at their age. They work together, which multiplies their power. They think creatively. And yes, they care about others. Perhaps that is not weakness. Perhaps that is evolution. The crowd erupted again, divided. Half agreed with Vorthak. Half agreed with Crone. The queen raised her wings for silence. The council will vote. Have my children proven themselves worthy, or have they failed? Tay held his breath. Frost, Ember, and Storm ran to him, pressing against his legs. They were scared. He knelt and held them close. Whatever happens, he whispered, I am proud of you. The vote took an hour. When it finished, the announcer stepped forward. By a margin of 60-40, the council declares the royal hatchlings have passed the proving ceremony. Tay almost collapsed with relief. The hatchlings chirped and jumped. But the queen did not look happy. 60-40, she said quietly to Tay later. That means 40% of our nobility thinks my children are unfit. This is not over. Vorthak will try again. Then we prepare for next time, Tay said. The queen looked at him with something like respect. You are braver than most warriors I know, Kong Tay. Or perhaps more foolish. I have not decided which. Maybe both, Tay said with a tired smile. That night a message came from Earth. His sister G1 was healthy again. The treatment had worked. She sent a video of herself walking without help, smiling. Tay cried for the first time since arriving on the ship. Frost found him and curled up in his lap, humming softly. One by one her brothers joined them. They had won today. But Tay knew harder battles were coming. 3 years passed like a strange dream. Frost, Ember, and Storm were no longer small hatchlings. They were now the size of horses, their scales gleaming with health. They could fly, fight, and speak clearly in multiple languages. But they still came to Tay's quarters every morning for breakfast. "You are spoiling them," Queen Vexera said one day, watching her children fight over who got to sit closest to Tay during lunch. "They are good kids," Tay said. He was cooking stew, the same recipe his grandmother had taught him. "They just remember where they came from." The queen had changed too. She now spent time with her children every day, not just for training but for talking and playing. Other draconian parents noticed. Slowly, quietly, some began doing the same with their own young. "The empire is changing because of you," she said. "Some nobles still hate it. But the common people love what you have done. They call you the Heart Teacher." Tay laughed. "That is a terrible name." "It is a name of respect," the queen said seriously. "You have shown us that strength and love are not enemies. That is no small thing." But Duke Vorthak had not given up. He had spent 3 years building alliances, spreading rumors, waiting for his moment. That moment came during the annual Grand Council meeting. "I propose a motion," Vorthak announced before the gathered nobles. "The human Kong Tay has fulfilled his purpose. The hatchlings are grown. He should return to his world before his influence spreads further." "The hatchlings still need him," Queen Vexera said. "Do they?" Vorthak smiled coldly. "Or have you all become dependent on human weakness? Our empire was built on strength. Now we sing songs at dinner and tell bedtime stories. We are becoming soft." Many nobles nodded. The vote was close but it passed. Tay had 1 month before he must leave the ship forever. When Tay told the 3 young dragons, they refused to accept it. "You cannot leave," Storm said, his voice breaking. "You are family." "We need you," Ember added. Frost said nothing. She just pressed her head against Tay's chest and made a sound like crying. "I have to go," Tay said gently. "The council has decided. But you 3 are strong now. You will be fine." "We will not eat," Storm declared. "If you leave we stop eating. Just like before." "Storm, no," Tay said. "You cannot." "He is right," Ember said. "We all agree. No Tay, no food." The queen tried to reason with them. Teachers tried. Even General Crone, who had become surprisingly fond of the hatchlings, tried. But the 3 young dragons kept their word. For 3 days they refused all food. On the 4th day the queen called an emergency council meeting. "My children are starving themselves," she announced. "They will die before they eat without Kong Tay. So I offer the council a choice. Either Tay stays or you explain to the empire why you let the royal heirs die over pride." "This is blackmail," Vorthak hissed. "This is love," the queen said. "Something you clearly do not understand." The vote was called again. This time it was not even close. 70% voted for Tay to stay. Vorthak stood in rage. "You are all fools. You are destroying everything our ancestors built." "No," General Crone said, standing. "We are building something better. I have fought in 100 wars. I have seen empires rise and fall. They all fell because they valued power over everything else. Maybe it is time we tried something different." The council chamber erupted in discussion. But the decision was made. Tay was given a new title, Royal Cultural Advisor. His job was to teach not just the royal family, but any draconian who wanted to learn about human approaches to family, education, and community. Within a year, the first draconian school based on Tay's ideas opened. Children learned combat, yes, but also art, music, and cooperation. Parents were encouraged to spend time with their young, not just train them. Not everyone accepted the changes. Some colonies rejected the new ways completely. But slowly, generation by generation, draconian culture began to shift. 5 years after Tay first arrived, his sister G1 came to visit. She was completely healthy now, working as a doctor on Earth. When she saw Tay sitting in a garden with 3 massive dragons who treated him like a beloved uncle, she started laughing. "Remember when you called me from that terrible job?" she said. "You were so miserable. Now look at you. You changed an entire galactic civilization with soup." "It was not just soup," Tay said with a smile. "It was caring about whether the soup tasted good." That evening there was a celebration. Frost, Ember, and Storm performed a traditional draconian flight dance, but they had added something new. They sang while they flew, a song Tay had taught them from Earth. The crowd of thousands watched in wonder. Dragons did not sing. It was not their way. But these dragons did. and slowly others began joining in. Queen Vexera stood beside Tay on the balcony, watching her children lead the empire into a new era. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You gave me back my children. You gave them a future I never imagined possible." "They did the hard part," Tay said. "They chose to be different. They chose love with their strength. That took more courage than anything I did." Years later, when Tay was an old man, he returned to Earth one final time. He walked through his grandmother's old neighborhood, now rebuilt and thriving. He visited her grave and placed flowers there. "I used your recipe, grandmother," he said to the stone. "It changed the galaxy. I think you would have laughed at that." The wind blew softly, carrying the scent of cooking from nearby homes. Families eating together, sharing stories, caring for each other. Maybe his grandmother was laughing. Maybe she knew all along that the smallest acts of love could ripple out and change everything. Tay returned to the draconian ship that had become his true home. Frost, Ember, and Storm, now fully grown and leading diplomatic missions across the galaxy, came to welcome him back. "Tay," Frost said, using the affectionate name they had always called him. "We have been practicing a new recipe. Will you try it?" They had cooked for him. The food was not perfect. It was a little burned and over-seasoned. But it was made with care and love and hope. Tay took a bite and smiled. "It is perfect," he said. And it was. Because food made with love always is. The end.